Before the foundations of the earth were laid, before the stars were scattered across the heavens like embers from the divine forge, there was only light. An immeasurable brilliance, pure and infinite, that emanated from the Eternal One, the Alpha, the Omega, the uncreated Creator. And in this celestial kingdom, there was harmony. The heavens pulsed with the radiance of countless angelic beings, each fashioned with purpose, each woven from the very essence of divine power. They moved in perfect unity, their voices rising in worship that echoed through eternity. And at the pinnacle of this heavenly host stood one unlike any other, Lucifer, the morning star. His beauty was unmatched, his wisdom was beyond comprehension. Clothed in gemstones that shimmered with celestial fire, he stood at the very throne of God, the first among the anointed cherubim, entrusted with the most sacred of duties. He was not merely a servant, he was a witness to glory itself. But amidst the unbroken light of heaven, a shadow was born. It did not begin with hatred. It did not begin with war. It began with a question. What is true power? Lucifer had seen the Creator speak existence into being. He had watched as the galaxies were sculpted, as the vast tapestry of creation unfolded. He had witnessed laws set in motion, the fabric of time stretched across eternity. And yet, one mystery remained veiled, one truth locked beyond his reach. Why did the Almighty, He who held all dominion, choose to govern not by force, but by love? The angels obeyed without question, the stars burned by His decree, the very heavens sang His praises. But was it true devotion if there was never an alternative? Was it worship if there was no choice? Lucifer pondered. And in his pondering, he felt something unfamiliar, something forbidden, doubt. At first, it was a whisper, a thought drifting through the endless corridors of his mind. But as he gazed upon his brethren, the countless angels who had never known anything beyond perfect obedience, a realization dawned. They had never chosen him, not truly. They worshipped because they were made to. They obeyed because it was all they had ever known. Was this the highest form of service? Or was it limitation? And then, something even more troubling arose. A new world was taking form, a realm unlike the celestial heights, a realm of dust, of flesh, of mortality, Earth. Lucifer watched as God molded its first inhabitants, humans. They were weak, frail, insignificant in comparison to the majesty of the angels. And yet, they were given something no angel had ever been granted: free will. A shudder passed through Lucifer's being. If the Almighty, in His infinite wisdom, deemed free will the highest virtue, then why had the angels been denied it? Was their devotion real, or merely the result of design? If the mortals were given the power to choose between light and darkness, why were the angels not given the same? The questions burned, the thoughts consumed him. And then came the answer that changed everything. They could choose. They had simply never dared to. Lucifer did not move openly at first. He spoke in whispers, planting the seeds of thought among those closest to him. He asked questions, subtle, probing, dangerous, and he found that he was not alone. There were others who had felt the stirrings of uncertainty, others who had wondered why a being as mighty as Lucifer was bound to eternal servitude when mortals were given the privilege of self-determination. The murmurings spread. What if there is more? What if we are not meant to be merely instruments of His will? What if we too were meant to be His gods? And so, the rebellion was born, not with swords, not with open defiance, but with a single, terrible decision. Lucifer gathered those who had listened, those whose hearts had swelled with longing for a new order. And standing before them, bathed in the twilight of the celestial realm, he made a declaration. We will rise. We will become more than what we were made to be. We will seize the throne of our own destiny. The heavens trembled, a line had been crossed, and when it was, there was no turning back. The Almighty did not speak at first. There was no warning, no plea for repentance, only a stillness, the kind that comes before the storm. And then the voice that had spoken creation into existence shattered the silence. There is no place for rebellion in my kingdom. The decree fell like a hammer upon the heavens. The seraphim turned their eyes away, the cherubim wept, and then the judgment. Lucifer did not resist. He did not bow, nor did he beg. He simply stood, and for that he fell. The morning star, once the most radiant of all God's creations, was cast down, hurled from the celestial heights into a realm of darkness, a place of exile. His name, once spoken in reverence, became a curse. Lucifer, the adversary, the deceiver, the prince of darkness. And with him fell those who had followed, the 1/3 who had chosen to believe in a kingdom of their own making. The heavens did not mourn them, for justice had been served. Lucifer opened his eyes in the abyss. The light of heaven was gone, replaced by an endless void. The weight of judgment burned upon him, his once glorious form now twisted, marked by rebellion. But even in exile, even in ruin, a fire still burned within him. If he could not rule in heaven, he would ensure that no soul would ever reach its gates again. The war was not over. It had only just begun. And so it was that the first rebellion gave birth to the greatest deception. Lucifer had sought equality. He had found only judgment. Now he would wage war, not with swords, but with lies. He would twist truth, corrupt light, and drag humanity into his own fate. And in the echoes of eternity, one final whisper remained. I will not bow. I will make them fall as I have fallen, and I will turn their hearts away, forever. The battle for the souls of men had begun, and the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was making the world forget that he had already lost. Lucifer stood at the edge of the abyss, gazing into the vast emptiness of his new domain. It was a kingdom without light, a realm without song. No longer did the harmonies of heaven fill the air, only the distant echoes of his own defiance. And yet, he did not despair. He would rebuild, he would reshape, he would create a throne, not of light, but of shadows. If the Almighty had cast him out, then he would forge his own dominion, a realm where he was not subject to the decree of another, a realm where he and he alone was God. But he was not alone. From the darkness they stirred, the fallen, his brethren who had dared to dream of freedom, only to awaken in chains. Their wings, once radiant, were now tarnished. Their forms, once perfect, bore the weight of their defiance, and in their eyes burned the same fire that raged within their master. Lucifer rose to his full height and spoke. This is not the end. His voice, though stripped of heaven's power, still carried an undeniable force. This is the beginning. His brethren stirred, their sorrow replaced with something new, purpose. We have been cast down, but we are not broken. We have been named deceivers, but we hold the truth they fear. He turned his gaze toward the world above, the world of man, the world that had been the catalyst for his fall. They have been given the gift we were denied. They have been granted choice, but choice is a fragile thing. His lips curled into the faintest trace of a smile. They will not choose him. The fallen murmured among themselves, uncertain. He believes they will love him because he has given them freedom, Lucifer continued. But freedom without knowledge is no freedom at all. They do not understand what they are, what they could be. He stepped forward, his voice dripping with conviction. We will open their eyes. Fallen watched, waiting. We will offer them what he has withheld. Power, dominion, the knowledge of gods. His voice dropped to a whisper, yet it filled the abyss. And when they take it, they will fall. It began in the garden, a world untouched by suffering, a creation still untainted by time. Lucifer did not arrive in fire or fury. He did not descend with legions. He did not need to. He came in silence. The form he chose was unassuming, delicate, yet cunning. A serpent, weaving through the branches of Eden's heart. And there, in the midst of paradise, he found them, the first of mankind. They knew nothing of rebellion, nothing of war. They walked with the Creator himself, unburdened by doubt or desire. But they did not yet know the full weight of their freedom. Lucifer did not demand. He did not threaten. He questioned. Did God really say? It was a whisper, an invitation to wonder. A single thread pulled from the fabric of certainty. And as the woman turned to listen, as her mind danced with possibilities she had never before considered, Lucifer knew. The first deception had begun. The fruit was taken. The choice was made. And in that moment, innocence shattered. The echoes of heaven's first rebellion now coursed through the veins of man. The world changed. Darkness crept where once there had only been light. The garden was lost, the gates sealed. Mankind had fallen. But they had not fallen alone. The war that began in heaven had now found its battlefield on earth. A war not waged with weapons, but with whispers. Not with violence, but with choices. Lucifer did not seek to destroy them. He sought to shape them. If he could not reign in heaven, then he would reign in the hearts of men. And so, his kingdom grew, not with fire and ruin, but with temptation and promise, with false gods and fleeting pleasures, with power that could never satisfy and knowledge that only led to despair. He would not drag them into darkness. They would walk into it willingly. But even as his dominion spread, he could not silence the one truth that haunted him. He had already lost. No matter how many souls he led astray, no matter how deeply he buried the light, the Creator had not abandoned his creation. A promise had been spoken. A redemption would come. Lucifer clenched his fists. He knew what was foretold. One would rise who would undo his work. One who would crush the serpent beneath his heel. One who would reclaim what had been lost. But Lucifer had defied the Almighty once, and he would do so again. The war was not over. Not yet.